The scent of rot hit Kaien Frost before he stepped into the rival pack's holding grounds. Blood, urine, despair. He shoved the iron door open, the hinges shrieking. Behind him, his enforcers flanked out in formation, blades and claws drawn. The Kennels were nothing but a row of rusted cages, stacked too high along the concrete walls. Inside, Omegas crouched in silence, skin clinging to bone, eyes dull, the kind of silence that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with being forgotten. Fucking animals, muttered Dren, his beta, eyeing the cages. No, Kaien said flatly, his voice cold as iron. Animals fight back. He moved through the aisle, the weight of his presence pressing against everybody in the room. Some shrank farther into their corners. Others didn't even move. Most of them wouldn't survive a week, even if he freed them. Then he stopped. Third, cage from the end. Small figure. Still. Head down. Unlike the others, she wasn't watching him. She wasn't begging. Wasn't flinching. She sat with her arms around her knees, tangled hair hiding her face, her breathing shallow, but even. There was no fear in her posture, just a kind of eerie stillness, like she had already left this world behind. Kaien crouched in front of her. Cage. Look at me, he said. She didn't move. He narrowed his eyes. I said, look at me. Still nothing. She deaf? Dren asked, glancing over. No. Kaien's voice was tight. She's ignoring me. That shouldn't have been possible. Alphas exuded dominance by nature, especially Kaien. Even ferals responded to his presence. But this girl? She didn't even flinch. He could feel the faintest trace of wolf in her, buried deep and silent. He gripped the cage bars. What's your name? Nothing. He noticed then. No marks on her neck, no tattoo, no tag. The others had been branded by their former alpha. She hadn't, not even a collar. Open it, Kaien said. Dren hesitated. Alpha, she's unresponsive, malnourished, probably broken. Did I stutter? Dren grunted and moved to unlock the cage. Kaien stepped inside. The moment his boots hit the concrete floor, her head jerked slightly. A twitch. Barely visible. He crouched again, close enough to smell the blood beneath her skin. What are you? He asked. Her eyes finally lifted, not fully, just a flicker beneath the matted strands. They were pale, almost colourless, but not dead. No, worse. They were waiting. Kaien reached out and gripped her wrist. That's when it hit him. A throb behind. His eyes. His wolf, silent for years, howled so loud it knocked the air from Kaien's lungs. He staggered back, heart thudding, eyes burning gold. Dren stepped forward, alarmed. Alpha! Kaien didn't answer. His wolf was clawing inside his chest, awake for the first time in years, and it wanted her. Kaien didn't speak as they left. The compound. The girl. No, the Omega was wrapped in one of his cloaks and carried by one of the enforcers, unconscious but breathing. Dren rode beside him as their jeeps cut across the icy terrain. The beta shot Kaien a look every few minutes but didn't press. Not until they passed the tree line. You felt the bond, Dren said flatly. Kaien's jaw clenched. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. You went white as a ghost and almost shifted in the middle of a raid. She's not marked. She doesn't speak. She didn't need to. Your wolf damn near exploded. Kaien stared ahead, the treetops whipping past. I thought you couldn't feel your wolf anymore, Dren muttered. After the war. Don't! Kaien's voice cut the air. Not now. Dren held his hands up. Fine, but you're bringing a feral Omega into our territory without clearance. The council will lose their minds. She's mine now. Dren. Paused. Is that a claim? I don't know, but he did. The bond had snapped into place the moment he touched her skin. No ceremony, no ritual, no mating. Just contact. That shouldn't have happened. No one said a word for the rest of the drive. They arrived at the Frost Territory fortress by nightfall. High stone walls loomed around the compound like jagged teeth. Warriors flanked the gates, bows strapped to their backs, and wolves paced the outer ring like shadows. As Kaien stepped out, the wind howled through the pines. He walked past the guards, giving no explanation. The girl lay limp in the enforcer's arms, pale as ash under the moonlight. "Put her in the south wing," he ordered. "Healer on standby. No visitors, no questions." Dren raised a brow. "You sure about that?" Kaien's gold eyes flicked toward him. "If I hear a single whisper, I'll rip out the tongue that started it." The castle doors closed behind them. The girl woke 3 days later. Kaien was in his study, poring over reports, when the healer entered. "She's awake," the woman said, her tone cautious. Kaien didn't look up. "Is she speaking?" "No. Won't make a sound. Barely eats. Flinches from every movement. But she knows you're the one who brought her here." That made Kaien pause. "She asks for you?" he asked. The healer hesitated. "She doesn't ask. She just calms down when you're near." Kaien stood. The room was dim, clean, quiet. She lay on the far side of the bed, curled into herself, staring at nothing. Kaien didn't speak. He stepped closer and sat in the chair beside her. The room smelled faintly of pine and something else, something familiar. Slowly, her eyes drifted to him. Again, that same pale look. Not quite fear, not quite trust. Just presence. Kaien leaned forward. "You still won't speak?" She blinked. He studied her face, thin, bruised beneath the skin, mouth slightly parted like she wanted to say something but couldn't. Her throat bore no damage, vocal cords intact. He spoke lower. "You're not dumb. You're not broken. So what are you?" No answer. "Do you know your name?" A flicker. She opened her mouth, then closed it. "Right." Kaien stood. "You're no one, not even a whisper, but my wolf won't shut up about you." She didn't understand. Or maybe she did. Her gaze followed him as he paced the room. "I should have left you in that cage." He turned back. "But I didn't. So now you're here. Which means you belong. To me." Her breath hitched at the word belong. Kaien saw it and hated himself for saying it. Word travelled fast in the Frost compound, though no one dared speak of it near Kaien, an unmarked omega. Mute. Found in the ruins of the enemy's kennels, and brought into the Alpha's home like she was royalty. "Does she have a name?" one of the younger soldiers asked. "Doesn't need one," another grunted. "They're calling her it." Kaien heard the whispers and said nothing. He watched her from a distance. She never ventured far from her room. The healer said she slept, with her back to the wall, eyes open more often than not. He had a bowl of raw meat placed outside her door. She wouldn't eat anything else. Days passed, then a week. One morning, Kaien stepped into her room without knocking. She was on the floor, curled near the window, eyes following the snow. Her body tensed at his presence, but she didn't retreat. He set down a slate and chalk beside her. "Write it." She looked at it, confused. "Your name," he said. "Nothing. Write anything." She lifted the chalk slowly, gripped it with shaking fingers and wrote a single word. "Girl." Kaien stared at the crude letters, slanted, unsteady. "That, what they called you." She gave the faintest nod. He knelt beside her. "You're not girl, not it, not nothing. You understand me?" No response, but he saw something shift behind her eyes. His wolf stirred. It happened that night. She screamed. Kaien woke instantly. The bond, tense, coiled, snapped, taut with panic. He reached her room in seconds. She was on the floor, thrashing, her arms over her head, breath coming in ragged sobs that didn't make sound. The healer rushed in, But Kaien waved her off. He moved toward her slowly, kneeling beside her, then reached out. She flinched hard, teeth bared. Kaien froze. Then, with infinite care, he offered his hand, palm open, resting it on the floor between them. Minutes passed. Then, slowly, trembling, she reached out and touched his fingers. The moment their skin met, the room went still. Her breathing slowed, her eyes fluttered, and she collapsed into sleep. Kaien stayed there, hand still beneath hers. He didn't sleep that night. He didn't want to. She only eats raw meat? Dren's nose wrinkled as he watched the girl crouch on the floor, fingers curled around a bowl of bloody venison. You sure she's not more beast than wolf? Kaien shot him a warning glance. Leave. Dren didn't move. You think this is normal? That thing can't even speak. She flinches when a door opens. She doesn't look anyone in the eye, and you're letting her sleep 2 doors down from you. She's not a threat. She's not anything. Kaien's voice dropped. Out! Dren's jaw clenched, but he turned and walked away. The girl didn't look up from her bowl. Her shoulders trembled slightly, though it wasn't cold in the room. Kaien waited until she finished, then approached quietly and sat beside her. She didn't run, didn't recoil, just shifted enough to keep distance between them. Why raw? He asked. No answer. He hadn't expected one. He tapped the floor with a knuckle. You were raised in the kennels? A blink. Nothing else. Did you ever shift? She lowered her head. He took it as a no. You afraid of your wolf? Stillness. Or, do you not have one? She turned her head away. Kaien exhaled. My wolf was silent for 5 years. Then he saw you. He didn't know why he said that. Maybe because part of him needed to believe she was real, that she wasn't some hallucination summoned from his war-battered brain. She looked back at him slowly. There was no recognition in her gaze, but there was awareness. That mattered. That night, she screamed again. Kaien was already awake. He'd stopped sleeping deeply since bringing her here. He entered her room and found her curled in the corner again, hyperventilating. No sound came from her mouth, but her body shook like she was being electrocuted. He dropped to his knees. Girl, he said firmly. Her eyes snapped to his. He opened his arms slowly. Come here. She stared. I'm not going to hurt you. Still shaking, she crawled forward. Her fingers touched his leg, then his chest. And then, hesitantly, as if expecting pain, she leaned into him. He wrapped his arms around her small frame and pressed her head to his shoulder. She didn't cry. He wasn't sure she even could, but she stayed. You've changed, the healer murmured, packing herbs into satchels. You used to barely speak to me unless someone was dying. Kaien leaned against the doorway, arms folded. I'm still, like that, not around her. He didn't respond. The healer gave him a look. What happens when the council finds out you're hiding a feral omega with no name, no rank, no mark? They won't. They always find out. He didn't answer. That evening, Kaien found her sitting at the edge of the training yard, watching the warriors spar. Her posture was tense but alert. No one else approached her. He walked over and sat beside her. You want to learn how to fight? She turned her head slowly toward him. Not against me, he added, but to defend yourself. She nodded once. He stood. Come on. The training room was cold and empty, lit only by 2 overhead lanterns. He handed her a padded stick. You ever held a weapon before? She looked at it like it might bite her. It won't kill you, he said dryly. He circled her slowly. If someone grabs you by the wrist, you twist, like this. He took her hand and gently demonstrated the move. She was stiff at first, trembling. Try it, he said. She mirrored it. Sloppy, but the instinct was there. He moved to stand in. Front of her. Hit me. Her brows drew together. Try. She jabbed weakly at his shoulder. He caught the stick in one hand. Again! She swung harder. This time, he let her hit his chest. Good. He saw the faintest flicker of satisfaction in her eyes. His wolf stirred again, whispering, "Mine." But Kaien pushed it back. "Not yet." "She still hasn't bathed?" Dren asked over breakfast, disgusted. "You've had her a week." "She won't. Let anyone touch her," Kaien muttered, sipping coffee. Dren raised a brow. "And you think you'll be the exception?" Kaien didn't answer. Later that night, he brought a bucket of warm water, cloths, and a bottle of lavender soap into her room. She sat on the floor, silent as ever. "You need to clean yourself," he said. "You smell like blood and dirt." "That's not a judgment, it's fact." She didn't react. He knelt beside her. "I won't hurt you." She stared at the cloth in his hand. "I'll do your arms first. If you hate it, say something, or move, or just slap me." He reached for her wrist slowly, giving her time to pull back. She didn't. His fingers brushed over her skin. She tensed, but didn't recoil. He dipped the cloth into the warm water and began wiping away weeks, maybe months, of grime. He said nothing. Neither did she. When he reached her forearms, he paused. Scars. Dozens of them. Some healed badly. Others were thin, white lines. One looked like a burn mark in the shape of a rune. Kaien stared at it. "You were silenced with magic." She blinked once. "Why?" Her eyes dropped. He finished the bath in silence. Before he left, he placed a clean tunic and trousers on the bed. "She's not just feral," the healer said the next morning. "She's magically silenced. That brand. Do you know what it means?" Kaien nodded grimly. "It's a suppression rune. Old magic. Outlawed. She may not even know how to speak anymore. She will. You're that sure? She'll remember." That afternoon, he brought her outside for the first time. The garden behind the south wing was overgrown, but still thriving. Wild mint, lavender, thorn bushes, herbs no one tended. She crouched beside the overgrown bed, eyes scanning everything, like a child seeing snow for the first time. Kaien watched her fingers brush against the leaves. She picked a sprig of rosemary and inhaled softly. A flicker of peace crossed her face. "You like plants?" She glanced up at him, nodded. "You know how to use them?" Another nod. Kaien narrowed his eyes. "They taught you healing?" She hesitated, then nodded again. He didn't speak for a moment. "You weren't just caged," he murmured. "You were used." She didn't deny it. Kaien left her alone in the garden for a few hours. When he returned, she was sitting cross-legged beneath the oak tree, braiding herbs together in a silent pattern. He felt calmer near her, as if her silence wasn't empty, but full of something the rest of the world lacked. He was halfway across the grass when shouting erupted at the wall. "Hey! You're not allowed out here!" A junior warrior, Koran, stormed across the yard. Kaien's eyes narrowed. "Stand down." "She doesn't belong outside, Alpha. She's not cleared." "I said stand down." Koran ignored him, approaching the girl. "Back to your room, Omega. Now." She froze, her body coiled like a spring. Koran reached to grab her arm. She growled, low and broken, but unmistakably a growl. Koran froze. Kaien moved like lightning, seizing the warrior by the throat and slamming him against the wall. "She is not yours." "To command," Kaien snarled. "Touch her again, and I'll peel the skin from your bones." Koran gasped. "She's not marked." "She's under my protection. You know what that means." The guard backed off. Kaien released him. When Kaien turned, the girl was standing now, silent. Her lips parted in disbelief, like she didn't know that sound had come from her. He walked to her, slowly, gently. "You growled." She nodded, a small nod, but a powerful one. He smiled, barely. Good. Kaien hadn't meant to start sleeping near her room. It happened the night after she growled. He told himself it was strategy. He wanted to be nearby in case of another nightmare. But when morning came, and he was still sitting outside her door with his back against the wall, arms folded and eyes closed, even he knew better. The pack noticed. "She's not even marked," Dren muttered under his breath as Kaien entered the war chamber the next day. "She's mine," Kaien replied coldly. Dren paused, then narrowed his eyes. "You said that like you meant it." Kaien didn't respond. Instead, he spread out the new patrol map. The borders had been quiet since the raid, but peace never lasted in their world. Still, his thoughts kept drifting, back to her. Later that evening, Kaien returned to the south wing. The door to her room was ajar. She was inside, curled up near the window, a small stack of herb bundles beside her. The sunlight caught the soft sheen in her hair, clean now, brushed, though uneven from someone clearly cutting it without care. She looked up when he entered. Kaien leaned against the doorframe. "Healer says you haven't had another nightmare." She nodded. "Good." He moved into the room and knelt beside her. "I want to take you further tomorrow, into the woods. A run." She stiffened. "You'll be with me," he added. Her eyes lowered. Then, slowly, she nodded again. It wasn't fear that kept her still now. It was the weight of decisions. She wasn't used to making her own. Kaien watched her in silence. His wolf stirred again, closer to the surface now, pacing behind his skin. He reached out and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. She didn't flinch. "You don't know what you are yet," he murmured. "But you're not a slave anymore. Understand?" She looked at him, truly looked, for the first time. Kaien didn't move. Then she nodded. The next morning, she met him by the stables, barefoot but steady. Kaien handed her a cloak. "You'll need it." She hesitated, then draped it over her shoulders. The fabric swallowed her tiny frame, but she didn't complain. They walked together into the woods. Snow had begun to melt, revealing dark earth beneath. The pines whispered overhead, their needles glittering with dew. She didn't speak, but Kaien didn't need her to. Her quiet presence was soothing in a way nothing else ever had been. He kept a slow pace, watching how she moved, light, careful. She'd spent too much time indoors. Her muscles were thin, but there was grace in her steps. They reached a clearing ringed by moss-covered stones. He turned to her. "Try to run." She blinked. "Just a few steps. You need to feel your body again." She looked unsure but nodded. She took off. It was clumsy at first. Her limbs flailed, her balance off. But there was something raw and wild about her movement. Something honest. Kaien watched her with narrowed eyes. His wolf growled low in his chest, responding to her energy. When she finally stumbled to a stop, panting, she looked back at him. Kaien approached, caught her gently by the arm. "You ran," he said. She smiled. A real smile, small, crooked, but alive. It stunned him. That night, the nightmares returned. Kaien heard her scream before the sound even left her throat. He burst into the room and found her clawing at her neck, trying to rip something invisible away. "Girl," he snapped. She didn't hear him. He lunged forward and pinned her wrists. "Wake up! You're safe!" She gasped awake, her eyes wide, mouth open, but no sound came out. Blood trickled from her nose. Kaien's heart froze. "Shit," he muttered, grabbing a cloth. He dabbed the blood gently, lifting her chin to look into her eyes. "They did more than silence you," he whispered. "Did they use binding spells too?" She didn't respond, but her body trembled under his hands. "I'll get it removed," he said. "I don't care what it costs." She shook her head. "No?" he asked. "You don't want it removed?" She touched her throat, then held up a finger, just one. He understood. One day. Not yet. Kaien nodded. Then one day. By the second week, the pack began whispering openly. "She still hasn't shifted," She walks around like she's not Omega. Alpha's treating her like a Luna. Kaien heard it all and ignored every word. She continued her silent routines. Training in the morning, herbs in the afternoon, sitting by the window when it rained. Kaien brought her books. At first, she didn't know what to do with them. Then, she started copying letters with a charcoal stick, silently mouthing the shapes of words. One evening, Kaien walked into her room and found a name written on the slate. Girl! He shook his head. Still holding on to that? She shrugged. Kaien took the slate and wiped it clean. Then he wrote, Lyra. She stared. It's not yours yet, he said. But it could be. She reached for the slate and held it to her chest. That was enough for now. The first signs came subtly, Kaien's shoulders tense, his eyes rimmed with gold, his voice rougher. His rut was coming. He'd known it was near, but something about her presence pulled it closer, faster. Dren noticed immediately. You need to leave the compound for the duration, Dren warned. You're barely keeping your wolf under control, Kaien growled. I'm not leaving her alone. Then you're risking something worse. If the bond's as strong as you say, I haven't marked her, but you want to. Kaien didn't answer. That night, he locked himself in the north wing. She came to the door 3 times. The third time, he couldn't stay away. He opened it. She stood there barefoot, cloak wrapped around her thin shoulders, eyes wide and uncertain. You shouldn't be here, he rasped. She stepped forward. I'm dangerous right now. I don't trust myself. Still, she came closer. His hands trembled as he grabbed her by the shoulders. Don't do this, he whispered. Not if you don't understand what you're choosing. She touched his chest, right over his heart. He groaned. I can't claim. You like this? She didn't move. I'll wait, he said, breath ragged. But don't tempt me again. She stepped back. He slammed the door shut and sat with his back against it until sunrise. The second night of Kaien's rut was worse than the first. The walls of the north wing trembled from his pacing. He hadn't slept, hadn't eaten. His wolf pressed harder with every hour, demanding her. The bond snapped taut with heat, even through thick stone and distance. She felt it too. Across the compound, Lyra lay curled on her bed, clutching the slate with her name still faintly etched across. Her breathing came in shallow gasps. Her wolf stirred for the first time in her memory, not as a voice, but as a presence. Curious, pulling her toward him. She fought the urge until midnight. Then she was up, out of bed, feet silent against the stone. The guards had been pulled from the north wing, Kaien's order, no doubt. She stood at the door, 1 knock, then 2. Inside, Kaien froze. Don't, he said. His voice was barely human. She opened the door. His eyes flashed gold immediately. Get out, he warned, gripping the edge of the dresser to keep from launching toward her. I mean it. She stepped inside anyway, shutting the door behind her. I will hurt you, Kaien said. You don't understand what this is. She walked slowly toward him, stopping just outside his reach. She could feel the heat radiating. Off him, like standing near a wildfire. The air pulsed with pheromones, musk, tension. But she didn't fear him. Not now. Kaien's hands curled into fists. I won't take you like this. Not while I'm half mad. She moved closer. Lyra. She placed her palm on his chest. His breath hitched, then broke. He dropped to his knees. She knelt with him, cradling his face in her hands, forehead to forehead. His entire body trembled as his wolf pressed forward. But still, he held the line. When his eyes closed, she finally whispered, barely a whisper, hoarse and cracked. Mine. His breath caught. She passed out in his arms seconds later. Kaien carried her to the bed and lay beside her. He didn't touch her again. But when dawn came, the rut had passed. 2 days later, The council arrived. 6 elders, each wearing formal, frost colors, eyes like sharpened glass. They gathered in the central war room, Kaien at the head of the long stone table, Dren seated beside him. Elder Varn wasted no time. "You've bonded a nameless Omega," he said, "unmarked, ferally raised, no bloodline, no history." "She's no longer feral," Kaien replied. "She's still not pack," added Elder May, frowning. "And you've compromised your judgment." Kaien met their gazes coldly. "My wolf chose her." "That's not how things work." "It's how I work." Silence fell. Dren watched the exchange in tense silence. "You want to challenge me?" Kaien asked. Varn narrowed his eyes. "Not yet. But if this female disrupts the hierarchy, we'll act. She hasn't disrupted anything. You sleep outside her door. You bring her into war briefings. You are training her yourself. And if she were a ranked Omega, you'd praise me for uplifting her," Kaien snapped. "But because she came from a cage, she's expendable?" "She's a risk," May said. "Even her name, Lyra, was given by you." "Because she had nothing," Kaien said. "And I won't let you take what little she's earned." Varn folded his hands. "Then mark her. Make her Luna." Kaien's jaw clenched. "Not yet. Then you're 1 foot from exile." Dren flinched. Kaien stood. "Try it." He walked out without waiting for dismissal. Lyra found him in the sparring hall that evening. Kaien stood alone, shirtless, striking the heavy bag with brutal precision. Each blow landed with enough force to echo down the corridor. His knuckles bled. She entered quietly and stood beside the bench where his towel lay. He paused when he saw her. "I'm not in the mood," he said gruffly. She walked toward him. "I told them I wouldn't mark you until you chose me." She didn't stop. "I don't care if they exile me," he said. "I'll go north, take you with me, build a new pack from ash if I have to." Still, she said nothing. Then she did something she hadn't done since the day they met. She touched him. Not by accident. Not in panic or fear. She raised her hand and brushed his jaw with her fingertips, softly. Kaien froze. She traced a line up his cheekbone to the small scar by his eye, then pressed her forehead to his chest. Kaien didn't breathe. "I won't force a mark," he whispered. "Even now." She looked up and nodded. It wasn't a yes. It was a not yet. And that was enough. Spring began to melt the snow from the edges of the territory. The forest thawed. Birds returned. Kaien brought her to the northern ridge to run again. Lyra had grown stronger. Her gait was steadier. Her breath no longer labored with each step. She ran through the trees like she belonged there. Kaien chased, behind her in his half-shifted form, just enough for his senses to sharpen. He didn't catch her. He didn't try. When she collapsed in a clearing, laughing soundlessly, Kaien approached and dropped beside her. "You're faster," he said, amused. She looked up at the sky, then pointed at a bird overhead. "A hawk?" he asked. She shook her head, then mimicked its cry. Raspy, but audible. He blinked. "You're speaking?" She nodded once, then whispered, "Small words. Easier now." Kaien stared at her in silence. "You're healing," he said. She smiled. He leaned forward, brushing his knuckles over her cheek. "Soon, you'll shift." She stilled. "You're afraid?" She shook her head slowly. "Don't know how. I'll teach you." She met his gaze. Kaien smiled faintly. "Run with me again tomorrow?" She nodded. And for the first time, she reached for his hand first. Despite her progress, the shift refused to come. Days turned to weeks. Kaien led her through meditations, breathing exercises, pain threshold drills. Nothing helped. She could sense her wolf now. It paced in the dark edges of her mind, but it wouldn't surface. "I think I'm broken," she said one night. Her voice so quiet Kaien nearly missed it. He sat beside her on the stone wall overlooking the forest. You're not broken. It doesn't want me. Or maybe, Kaien said gently. You don't trust it. She blinked. You were taught to hate your instincts. Your wolf's been locked away your whole life. You didn't bury it. It buried you. She looked down at her hands. Kaien took them gently. You are more wolf than most alphas I know. Her throat worked. Even if I never shift. Yes, he said. You're still mine. She didn't correct him this time. The next morning, Kaien found a drawing on his desk. A rough sketch, done in charcoal. A girl with hair like tangled smoke, eyes wide, kneeling beside a great shadow wolf. The girl had a faint rune over her throat, and the wolf curled around her like a shield. Kaien touched the page. The title read, Not Broken. Kaien stood at the gatehouse before dawn, watching as a group of foreign emissaries arrived under black banners. He didn't recognize the crest, but he recognized the stench of blood on the wind. Dren appeared beside him. Southern tribe. Rogues. They want a meeting. Did they give a name? Malrek, Dren said tightly. Former alpha of the Red Hill pack. Kaien's jaw tightened. Red Hill was the one that kept Kennels. The one Lyra came from. Lyra stood at the far end of the garden, stringing bundles of lavender and mint when she felt the bond tremble. Not with pain, but with wrath. Kaien was angry. She dropped the herbs and turned. When she reached the hallway outside his chamber, Dren blocked her path. They're rogues, he warned. You don't want to be seen. She didn't speak, just looked past him, toward the closed doors. Then she turned and disappeared into the shadows. In the war room, Malrek sat slouched in a chair like he owned the stone beneath him. His hair was greasy, his smile rotten. You took something of mine, he said. Kaien said nothing. A girl, no name, small thing. Lived in the low kennel with the others. One of our healers marked her. Kaien's fists curled at his sides. Malrek's eyes gleamed. She's worth gold now, I hear. Tamed your wolf. Sleeping in your bed, is she? Dren stepped forward, but Kaien raised a hand. I suggest you stop speaking, Kaien said coldly. Malrek leaned in. She has something that belongs to me. A brand. A curse. And I want it back. Kaien's voice dropped. She is mine now. If you step foot past my gate again, I'll bury you beneath it. Malrek stood. You're making enemies, Frost. Big ones. Kaien smiled without warmth. I like enemies. They don't lie to your face like allies do. That night, Kaien told her everything. She sat cross-legged by the fireplace in his chamber, listening without moving. He was the one, Kaien said. The one who owned the pack that marked you. He knows you're here. She looked down. He said you were cursed, that your mark is more than silencing. She touched her throat absently. Kaien watched her. Do you know what it does? She shook her head. Then we'll find out, and we'll break it, no matter what it takes. Her hand reached for his, and didn't let go. Kaien left Dren in charge, and rode north with Lyra before dawn. They travelled, on horseback, through fog-drenched hills and winding ravines. Lyra had never left the Frost compound before. Every tree, every scent was new. She sat behind Kaien on the stallion, arms wrapped around his waist, cheek resting between his shoulder. Blades. He felt her wolf stir again. Close, so close. Where are we going? She rasped. Kaien looked back, surprised she'd spoken aloud. To the ridge, he said. There's a witch who deals in forbidden magic. She'll know how to read the rune. Dangerous? She asked. She's worse than dangerous, Kaien said. She's my aunt. The witch's home was built into the face of a cliff. Half stone, half forest, all shadows. Her name was Isara Frost, Kaien's mother's sister, cast out 2 decades ago for practicing blood-binding rituals. When she opened the door, she smiled, like a woman who knew too much. Kaien, she said, her voice dry as autumn leaves. And this must be your little ghost. Lyra flinched at the nickname. Kaien stepped in front of her. Can you read the rune? Isara's eyes glowed faintly gold. I can do more than that. She had Lyra lie down on a slab of stone in the center of her den, surrounded by candles and salt rings. Kaien sat at her head, holding her hand. Isara drew the circle, whispered the old tongue, and pressed 2 fingers to Lyra's throat. The room pulsed. Lyra's body tensed. Kaien leaned in. Breathe. The rune flared, once. Then, again. And then Isara spoke. She was not just silenced. She was sealed. Kaien's brow furrowed. Sealed. Isara looked up. Her wolf was bound, locked away, not broken, imprisoned. On purpose. Why? She's a vessel, Isara whispered, and they feared what was inside. Kaien turned to Lyra. She was shaking. Can it be undone? He asked. Yes, Isara said, but it will hurt. The ritual began at dusk. Isara drew the ancient sigils with Lyra's blood, painting them across her ribs, her hands, her collarbone. Kaien watched every stroke with clenched fists. She must call her wolf, Isara said. Call it and accept it, or the seal won't break. Kaien knelt at Lyra's side. You don't have to do this now. But Lyra nodded. I want it back, she rasped. I want me back. Isara placed her hands on Lyra's chest and began to chant. The air grew heavy. The light bent. Shadows deepened. And then, Lyra screamed. Kaien lunged to hold her, but Isara shoved him back. No, she barked. Let her fight. Lyra writhed on the stone, body arching as if fire ran through her veins. Her nails tore into the stone. The rune on her throat pulsed, cracking, bleeding, then burning gold. Then a sound echoed through the den. A howl. Low. Fierce. Raw. Kaien's breath caught. Lyra opened her eyes, and they glowed silver. The rune shattered and her wolf was awake. They spent the night in the mountains. Kaien built a fire near the ridge. Lyra sat beside it, silent, wrapped in a thick fur, eyes still rimmed in silver. Does it feel like you? He asked. She nodded. Can you shift? I think so. You're not sure. She looked at the moon, high and full. I'm scared it won't stop. Kaien scooted closer. It will. I never felt it before, she whispered. My whole life. I thought I didn't have one. He touched her cheek. You had it, just buried. I want to try. He stood and backed away. I'll stay close. Lyra took a deep breath, and then her body began to change. Bones snapped, her limbs stretched, her skin shimmered and split, and when it was done, a wolf stood in her place, small, white, lithe. She blinked up at Kaien. He smiled. You're beautiful. She lunged toward him. He braced, but she nuzzled his chest and then licked his hand. Kaien laughed. He'd never laughed like that before. When they returned to the compound, no one recognized her. She walked upright beside Kaien now, her shoulders squared, her gaze steady. Her wolf no longer curled in fear. It stood inside her, awake and alert. Even Dren raised a brow. You've changed. Lyra nodded. Yes. You're speaking more, he said. She shrugged. Easier now. Kaien smiled at her from the stairway. Show them. Lyra hesitated. Then, before the entire courtyard, she shifted. The crowd gasped. The white wolf stood proudly, head lifted, tail curved high. And when she returned to her human form, she said clearly, I am Lyra, Omega by birth, Alpha by choice. Kaien stepped beside her, and the pack, every one of them, bowed. The scent of spring rain drifted through the frost stronghold, and with it came something sharp, electric, Lyra's heat. Kaien sensed it before anyone else. It was subtle at first, a warmth that clung to his skin after she passed by, the way her voice lingered longer in his ears. Then it thickened, an invisible thread between them tightening by the hour. She didn't seem to notice at first. But her skin flushed easily. Her breath hitched when Kaien entered a room. Her scent changed, richer, sweeter, dangerous. She doesn't know, Dren said, watching her from the courtyard. She's never experienced it, Kaien replied, jaw tight. Dren folded his arms. You'll need to tell her before her body decides for her. That evening, Kaien found Lyra in the herb garden, kneeling in the damp earth. Her fingers moved mechanically, but her eyes were far away. He crouched beside her. You feel strange, he said quietly. She nodded, not looking at him. Like I'm burning, but not sick. It's your heat, he said. She stilled. My what? He gently took her soil-streaked hands. Your first heat. It's your wolf recognizing the bond. She looked up, eyes wide. What happens? Kaien hesitated. Your instincts will pull you to your mate, strongly, sometimes, violently. And you? She whispered. I'm trying not to lose control. Her lips parted. I won't take you unless you ask me to, Kaien said, voice rough. Even if your scent drives me mad, even if my wolf claws to the surface, you decide. I don't know how to decide, she said. Then I'll wait. She came to his door the next night. Hair, loose, barefoot, body trembling. Kaien opened it and immediately froze. The heat scent was overpowering now, laced with want, with fear, with something desperate. Lyra, he rasped. I don't want to hurt anymore, she whispered. I want to belong to someone, to you. His restraint shattered. He swept her into his arms and pinned her against the wall, kissing her like a drowning man. She kissed him back, feral and hungry, pulling at his shirt, moaning into his mouth. But when his teeth grazed her neck, where the mark would go, she stilled. Not yet, she gasped. Kaien froze instantly. Not yet, she repeated, softer. Just stay. He wrapped her in his arms and carried her to the bed, curling around her like a shield. She didn't need the mark yet, but he would wait as long as she needed. The storm rolled in at dawn. Kaien stood on the southern wall, watching, the clouds roil over the treetops like bruises. The scent of smoke reached him before the scout did. They're coming, the young warrior panted. 5 carriages, armed riders. Malrek leads them. Kaien's jaw flexed. Raise the gates. Let them see we're not hiding. Malrek dismounted like a man who believed he still had power. He sauntered into the courtyard, sneering. Did you think we wouldn't come back for what's ours? Lyra stood behind Kaien on the steps, arms crossed, eyes sharp. She wore her old scars like armor now. Malrek saw her. His sneer twisted into something crueler. Little bitch, he said. You smell like Alpha now, but I know what you are. Still a kennel girl underneath it all. Kaien didn't move. Lyra stepped forward. I remember what you did to me. The entire pack fell silent. Malrek laughed. I did plenty. You'll have to be more specific. I remember the cage, the experiments, the rune, the screams. Her voice didn't shake. Malrek rolled his eyes. You were a tool, nothing more. Kaien's power snapped like a whip. She is mine, he growled, and you are trespassing. Malrek's eyes lit with challenge. Then make me leave. Kaien didn't answer with words. He launched himself forward and slammed Malrek into the dirt. The duel was vicious. No weapons, no rules. Kaien fought like the monster he was always feared to be. Brutal, precise, efficient. Malrek tried dirty tricks, blood magic, biting. Nothing worked. Kaien pinned him at last, one hand around his throat. You won't touch her again, he said. And then he crushed Malrek's windpipe. The courtyard erupted in silence. Lyra didn't flinch. They burned Malrek's body outside the gates. Kaien didn't attend. He sat in his chamber, wiping blood from his knuckles, jaw clenched. Lyra came to him, quiet as snowfall. She knelt beside him, and touched his hand. "I'm not afraid," she said. He looked up at her, tired. "You should be. I nearly lost control." "But you didn't." She crawled onto his lap, gently cupping his face. "You fought for me. I always will. You already have." Kaien closed his eyes and leaned into her touch. "He was the last tether to your past. It's over now." She kissed his cheek. "Then I can choose my future." The council called a meeting. Elder Varn was absent, replaced by a new beta from the Eastern Province, but the message was the same. "Your bond is dangerous," Elder May said. "Her power is unknown. Her wolf is unstable. She's shifted. She's proven herself. She is still unmarked." Kaien stood beside Lyra in the center of the chamber. "She will be marked when she is ready," he said. "Not a second before." May eyed Lyra. "And are you ready?" Lyra didn't speak at first. Then she looked Kaien in the eye and nodded. The ritual was private, just the two of them, under the moon, in the forest clearing where she had first run wild and free. Kaien stood shirtless, offering his wrist. "Mark." "Me too," he said. "Let it be equal." Lyra stared at him, heart pounding. Then she shifted. Her wolf, snowy, sleek, glowing with silver light, stepped forward and bit into his forearm, firm but clean. He hissed, then laughed. Sharp little thing. And then he shifted, larger, darker, power pouring off him. He bit her gently, just under her collarbone. The bond exploded. They fell into each other, not just physically, but soul deep, memories blending, emotions flooding. Her pain, his rage, her silence, his longing, and then peace. They returned to the compound the next day. Lyra wore Kaien's mark, but more than that, she wore herself, not a slave, not a caged girl, a Luna, and no one questioned it. Kaien summoned the pack that evening to the central courtyard. Dren stood with the warriors. The healer wiped tears from her eyes. Even the pups sat still at their parents' feet. Kaien raised a hand. "This is Lyra," he said. "She is no longer nameless," the crowd murmured softly. "She came to us broken, but she is not weak. She is my bonded, my Luna. And she's earned this place, not through bloodline, but through survival." He looked to Lyra. She stepped forward. "I don't speak for power," she said, voice strong now. "I speak for those who can't. The ones in cages, the ones forgotten. You gave me a name." Her eyes swept the crowd. "So I'll give you hope." They bowed, all of them, even Dren. And from that night forward, no one called her girl again. She was Lyra Frost, Luna of the Silent Flame. 3 weeks after Lyra's marking, peace shattered. It began with a blood-slicked scout staggering through the gates at dawn, an arrow lodged in his shoulder and claw, marks scoring his chest. Kaien met him in the courtyard, ripping the arrow free himself. "Who did this?" he demanded. The scout coughed blood. "Eastern border, not rogues, uniformed, organized." Dren cursed from behind Kaien. "Military style." Kaien's voice was stone. "They want a war." In the war room, Kaien spread a map across the table. "Eastern, packs haven't touched our borders in years," he said. "Not since I took command." "They're testing you," Dren said. "Testing her." Lyra stood silently at Kaien's side, eyes flicking to the blood-stained border on the map. "I want names," she said softly. Kaien looked at her. "You think this is personal?" She nodded. "If they feared you, they'd attack the gate, but they came through the woods, the place I run." Her fingers grazed the map. "They're hunting me." Kaien's hand found hers. "Then let them try." That night, Lyra shifted and ran alone, her wolf slicing through the trees like silver fire. She found the broken tree line first, then the scent, metal, leather, blood, not old blood, fresh. She doubled back, racing toward the frost border tower. By the time she shifted back and dressed, Kaien was already on horseback. Found something? He asked. 3 men. Watching. Armed. He swung her onto the saddle behind him. Then we send them a message. They found the invaders by the creek, setting up camp as if the land were theirs. Kaien gave no warning. He struck first, tearing through the largest with a blade to the chest, leaving the other 2 scrambling. Lyra stepped into view, calm, barefoot, pale moonlight catching the mark on her collarbone. One of the men froze. You, he whispered. The marked one. Lyra tilted her head. You branded me once. His eyes widened. I remember your hands, she said. Your voice. You laughed when I couldn't scream. Kaien stepped forward, rage vibrating under his skin. Lyra raised a hand. No, he's mine. The man panicked and ran. Lyra didn't chase. She shifted. Her wolf pinned him within seconds, teeth hovering above his throat. But she didn't kill him. She shifted back, blood steaming in her veins. You don't. I deserve mercy, she said, voice hoarse. But I do. I deserve to walk away clean. She turned her back. Kaien finished it. Word spread quickly. The Eastern Packs had violated Frost land, and the Frost Alpha had retaliated. But the Council wasn't pleased. You've escalated tensions, Elder May warned. There are whispers, now, that you're too emotional, that she controls you. Kaien didn't respond. His fingers tapped the war map slowly. She showed restraint, Dren said. She let one of them live. May frowned. You call that leadership? Kaien stood. I call it Luna. In the training yard, Lyra sparred with 3 warriors at once. She no longer fought like prey. She moved like water. Unpredictable, fast, unrelenting. One of the warriors dropped. The other fell back. The third hesitated too long, and Lyra landed a solid punch to his ribs. Kaien watched from the wall. Dren joined him. They're learning to follow her. Kaien smiled faintly. She doesn't need to command. They listen, anyway. Like they do to you. No, Kaien said. I lead through fear. She leads through fire. That night, Lyra lay curled against him in bed. I used to be scared of the dark, she said. You aren't anymore. She shook her head. You brought me into it, and it didn't swallow me. Kaien pressed a kiss to her temple. You never needed light, Lyra. You just needed to see what you could become in the dark. She smiled. The next attack was worse. A small frost patrol never returned from a northern outpost. When Kaien rode out to investigate, he found the tower, abandoned, no bodies, no blood, just silence, until he stepped inside. Then the shadows moved. Rogues? No, worse, silent ones. An old faction, assassins trained to hide their scent, erase their presence, and kill without sound. Only one pack used them, the Pale Fang Syndicate. Kaien returned to the compound in fury. Lyra met him at the gate. They came for you, he said, but they studied you first. They used your trauma, your silence. She stiffened. I thought they were disbanded. So did I. He touched her arm. This is more than politics now. They're hunting you for what you survived. Lyra's voice turned cold. Then I'll stop running. They trained for war, not just warriors, but omegas, elders, healers. Lyra insisted. I was left in a cage because I was small, weak, silent, she said to the crowd. So we won't leave anyone behind this time. She taught others how to move quietly, how to defend themselves without size or strength, how to bite back. And they listened, because she had done it first. A week later, the silent ones struck again. This time, they reached the compound walls. They didn't expect Lyra to meet them at the gate. She stood in white, barefoot, unarmed, a blade tucked into the belt of her robe. Kaien and Dren flanked her. Last chance, Kaien said. Turn around. The masked assassins didn't move. So Lyra did. She shifted mid-air, striking the closest one across the throat in a fluid leap. Her wolf tore through them like a phantom. silent, swift, unmerciful. Kaien's warriors followed her lead, emboldened by her fearlessness. By dawn, the courtyard ran red, and Lyra stood in the center, bloodied, shaking, but unbroken. Kaien approached, chest heaving. "You okay?" She nodded, then looked down at her arms, cut and bruised. "This blood," she said softly. "It's not mine." Kaien tilted her chin. "Whose is it?" She smiled faintly. "The girl I used to be." Kaien and Lyra sat in the council chamber, late into the night. The flickering torchlight cast long shadows across their faces, deepening the tension. Elder May spoke again, voice like ice. "Your victories have made enemies, not just outside but inside Frost. There are those who doubt your bond." Kaien's eyes burned. "Doubt us all they want. We are stronger together." Lyra rose, her voice steady. "I am not here to ask for acceptance. I am here to earn it." Varn, the new beta, leaned forward. "The council fears change. They fear what you represent." Kaien glanced at Lyra. "Then we'll give them reason to respect it." Lyra met May's gaze. "I am not the girl you caged. I am the Luna of Frost, and I am here to lead." May's lips pressed into a thin line. Days passed with whispered plots and cold shoulders. Kaien pulled Lyra aside in the training yard. "They're watching you," he said. "Testing your limits." Lyra wiped sweat from her brow. "Let them. I'm not afraid." Kaien chuckled, rare and soft. "I wish I were that confident." She looked up, curious. "Trust me," he said, voice low. "You're stronger than you know." She smiled. "Only because I have you." He reached out, brushing her hair behind her ear. "Only because you let me in." They stood close, the unspoken promise between them, a quiet fire. That evening, Dren approached Kaien with a grim expression. "Word from the southern packs," he said. "They're forming an alliance against Frost." Kaien frowned. "Led by who?" "A woman," Dren replied. "Alara Voss, former beta, known for her ruthless ambition." Lyra entered quietly. "She's heard of me." Kaien looked at her. "Then she fears you." Lyra nodded. "She wants to break us." Kaien's eyes darkened. "Then we'll show her what it means to cross Frost." Alara Voss arrived under a banner of blood-red wolves. She demanded a parley on neutral ground. Kaien and Lyra met her in the frozen valley between their territories. Alara was fierce, pride burning in her eyes. "Your Luna," she said, nodding toward Lyra, "is a threat to the old ways. She undermines pack order." Lyra stepped forward. "I'm a threat to those who enslave and silence." Alara's smile was cold. "Then prepare to be broken." Kaien's voice was steel. "You'll find Frost unbreakable." Tensions flared. Words became threats. Threats became a promise of war. Back at Frost, Kaien called a gathering. He raised his voice so all could hear. "War comes, but we are not divided. Not while I stand with Lyra." Lyra stepped beside him, strength radiating. "We fight not just for land, but for survival, for freedom, for the future." The pack rallied, their howls rising as one. Kaien looked at Lyra, eyes shining. Together, she nodded. Always, and beneath the cold sky, their bond was stronger than ever. The Frost pack gathered under a cold dawn, the air thick with anticipation. Kaien stood at the head of the war council, fingers drumming. On the oak table, Lyra sat beside him, eyes scanning the maps spread before them. "Alara's forces will strike at the eastern ridge at first light," Kaien said. "They aim to cut off our supply routes." Dren leaned in. "We have scouts ready to intercept." Lyra touched Kaien's arm. "We can't underestimate them. Alara is cunning." Kaien nodded. "Nor can we underestimate ourselves." He looked around the room. "Tonight, we rest. Tomorrow, we fight." That night, Lyra slipped out of the compound, shifting into her wolf form beneath the silver moon. She moved silently through the trees, following the faint scent of movement ahead. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, Alara herself. Lyra's growl was low and warning. Alara raised her hands. "Not here to fight." Lyra's wolf circled cautiously. "Kaien is strong," Alara said, voice smooth. "But you are the true threat." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "What do you want?" A warning. "Stand down, or be destroyed." Lyra shifted back, defiant. "We'll never bow." Alara smiled coldly and disappeared into the night. At dawn, the eastern ridge erupted into chaos. Alara's packs surged forward, howls echoing like thunder. Kaien led the charge, sword gleaming, eyes locked on the enemy. Lyra fought beside him, her wolf fierce and relentless. Steel clashed. Wolves howled. Blood stained the snow. Kaien caught Lyra's hand as they backpedaled. "Stay close," he warned. She nodded, breath ragged. "I'm not afraid." He smiled fiercely. "Good." Together they turned and charged, their bond a blazing beacon. Amidst the storm of battle, the tide turned when Dren sacrificed himself to save Lyra from a deadly strike. Kaien screamed as Dren fell. Lyra cradled his head. "You'll live. You have to." Dren smiled weakly. "The pack needs you both." With renewed fury, Kaien and Lyra pressed forward. Alara was captured, her forces scattered. Kaien knelt beside Lyra, voice raw. "We won, but at a cost." Lyra nodded, tears streaming. "We'll honor him. Always." Weeks later, Frost thrived. The pack gathered for a ceremony beneath the rising sun. Kaien took Lyra's hands. "You have led with strength and heart." Lyra smiled. "I only did what was right." The council bowed as she was named Luna officially. Kaien whispered, "You are mine. Always." She replied, "And you are mine." Together they watched the dawn break over their home, bound by love, forged by battle, ready for whatever came next.